I'd like to call the February 18th meeting to order. Rick, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Rick. Roll call, please, Cindy.
Rick Montalto.
Here.
Trustee Montalto.
I answer to a lot of things.
All right. I know that.
I've been called worse.
Trustee Conan. Here. Trustee Cook.
Here.
Trustee Heron.
Here.
Trustee Walter is really absent this evening, and this time Heidi, Trustee Lundy is absent. President Michaels.
Here. Okay. Again, thank you all for being here tonight. Appreciate it. Could I get a motion to approve a proclamation Hope for the Days, National Suicide Prevention and Action Month? Make a motion.
Second.
All right. I'd like to take a moment and read this proclamation. Hope for the Days 2020 National Suicide Prevention and Action Month proclamation. Whereas September is known globally as Suicide Prevention Month, the National Suicide Prevention and Action Month proclamation was created to raise the visibility of the mental health resources and suicide prevention services available in our community. The goal is to speak openly about the importance of mental health and the impacts of suicide to help remove the surrounding stigmas and to direct those in need to the appropriate support services. And whereas suicidal thoughts can affect anyone regardless of age, gender, race, orientation, income level, religion, or background, and according to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, suicide is the 10th leading cause of death among adults and the second leading cause of death among individuals between the age of 10 and 34 in the U.S. And whereas more than 47,000 people died by suicide across the United States in 2017, which, according to the CDC, was more than twice the number of homicides, with an average of 129 suicides completed daily, which includes active military and veterans, accounting for 13.5% of all suicides nationally. And whereas each and every suicide directly impacts a minimum of 100 individuals, including family, friends, co-workers, neighbors, and community members. And whereas Sugar Grove, Illinois is no different than any other community across the country, but chooses to publicly place our full support behind local educators, mental health professionals, athletic coaches, law enforcement officers, and parents. As parents in supporting our community and simply being available to one another. And whereas global organizations like Hope for the Day and our local partner, NAMI, Kane, South, DeKalb, and Kendall counties, are on the front lines of a war that many still refuse to discuss, as suicide and mental health remain too uncomfortable to talk about. And whereas every member of our community should understand that throughout life's struggles, we all need the occasional reminder that we are all fighting our own battles. And whereas I encourage all residents to take the time to check in with their family, friends, and neighbors on a regular basis and to honestly communicate their appreciation for their existence by any gesture they deem appropriate. A simple phone call, message, handshake, or a hug can go a long way towards helping someone realize that suicide is not the answer. Now therefore be it resolved that I, P. Sean Michaels, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2020 as National Suicide Prevention and Action Month in the village of Sugar Grove, Illinois. We're passing this because we have Joel Frieders and Susan Chappell, who both worked with suicide preventions, and appreciate you being here. I think your goal is to accumulate as many proclamations as possible before September. So,
yes, sir.
Yeah. Do you want to say a few words?
Sure. You can stand.
Yeah, just stand. It's fine.
My name is Joel. I'm a Scorpio. I like long walks from the beach and fluffy white pillows. I'm an alderman up in Yorkville, Illinois, and I lost a good friend of mine in July of 2017 to suicide. He was 40. He was the coolest person I've ever known, and it shocked me. And ever since the loss of my friend Mike Malinowski, I realize that I'm only going to be an alderman for a short amount of time because no one should go through that and be an elected official for more than a few terms. I'm just going to say that. So while I have this short amount of time, as someone who people will open my emails, I figure I want to get as many people as possible talking about the stuff that sucks. Because once you start talking about the stuff that sucks, it doesn't suck any less, you just get stronger. So I figure if I start talking about this, my little kids who are now 10, 10, and 12 will have a better understanding of the fact that when you, just like the movie Shrek, better out than in, if you get the things that suck in your mind off of your chest, the likelihood of you attempting suicide diminishes. And it's not just something that we say, it's actually true. So since 2017, I've sent out a couple thousand emails just asking people, like President Michael's here in your community, to just talk about suicide. It takes 3 minutes, and it means the world to people who have been negatively impacted by suicide. My friend Susan here lost her daughter recently. This is something that isn't going to go away. And so while my kids are young and while I still have the energy, I'm going to keep sending emails and asking people to talk, because the more we talk, the less people are afraid to talk. The more people are open to talking, the less we have to bury our friends and family and neighbors and our celebrities that, you know, the statistic in there is that every suicide negatively impacts 100 people. I'm pretty sure that's close to 1,000 now, considering the fact that we have the internet that connects us. But it's also one of those things that if we don't act on it consistently and continually, it's going to keep happening. So I'd rather just be the annoying guy asking to talk about the stuff that sucks than lose another friend or family member. So thank you very much. I appreciate you guys.
Susan, would you like to?
First of all, I just want to thank you very much for reading that, and everybody to have your open minds here. I lost my child on April 26, 2018, and it's just super important to me now that we are able to save these other people. And she was an awesome girl, and you know, it's just my goal to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else. My daughter was someone that tried to help other people with their you know, mental illness and depression, and it can affect anybody. And like Joel said, I mean, we've all got to open our minds and just stop that stigma, because there still is such a big stigma out there for mental illness. And again, it can happen to anybody. And you know, God knows I'd do anything to bring her back. But since I can't do that, I'm going to get out there and make sure that I can help everybody else. And thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
So we had a motion and a second and some discussion. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Opposed?
There we go.
Lord. All right, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Yep.
Oh, is that good?
Where Susan was nice, they had a discussion, was it the last chamber meeting about
Yes.
suicide prevention? So we are trying to bring it to the forefront and talk about it a lot more. Well, good luck. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
you being here.
Oh, I'm with Dennis Hope, by the way. Y'all see us at the courthouse.
Okay. And purple is your color?
Purple is my color.
Good.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah. How many proclamations do you have?
He's at 36 today.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Okay, appointments for police pension. I'd like to nominate for the police pension board Mike Shomas, whose term would end May 1st, 2020, and Mike Martinez, whose term would end May 1st, 2021, to the police pension board.
Second?
Any discussion? Okay. Chief Coxwell? Okay. Roll call, please.
Trustee Montalto?
Aye.
Trustee Herron?
Aye.
Trustee Cronin? Aye. Trustee Cook?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Any public comments on items scheduled for action tonight? Under tonight's consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes, vouchers, treasurer's report, resolution waiving repayment of interfund loan, a a resolution authorizing the professional service agreement for audit services and a resolution authorizing a PSA for audit services regarding the police pension fund. And then we'll have discussion items under Mallard Point, the refuse, recycling, and capital projects list. Any comments?
I'd just like to, I emailed Matt Anastasia today and asked questions about the TIF, and he was kind enough to reply to me and help me understand how it works, and I greatly appreciate that. So thank you very much. I have a much better understanding of how they're recorded. I'm an accountant, so I want the numbers, or I want the action. So I really appreciate him taking the time and helping me to understand how those work, so I have a better understanding of how it works. Thanks,
Great.
Matt.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll close that portion. May I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
Second.
Second by trustee Herron. Any requests to remove an item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, roll call please, Cindy.
Trustee Montalto?
Aye.
Trustee Herron?
Aye.
Trustee Cronin?
Aye.
Trustee Cook?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. No general business under discussion items, Mallard Point drainage. Brad, you have a update? Scott Trotter from Trotter and Associates was supposed to be here tonight, but he was not able to make it, so, Brad will bring us.
So, as you recall, at the January 21st meeting, you guys asked us to do a little sump pump study. Approximately 12 homes are affected down there. So, overall, we did not observe any patterns with the group of homes that experienced high flows compared to the homes with moderate to no flows. In fact, some of them, the sump pits were dry. And then some of them, just to give you an example, some it took 5 minutes to fill a sump pit. Some took 13 and a half minutes. One of them was basically 30 seconds. Next one was basically instantly. The sump pump did not shut off. You know, it was just running nonstop. Next one was 1.5 minutes. Almost 2 minutes. 1 minute, and then one was completely dry. So there was no flow into it.
Did we ever get in touch? I know we had the email out there, but we had not been able to contact the
We have not been able to
resident
get
from
to that house.
526 that was here.
Yes, we have not been able
Still
to
haven't been
contact
able to reach them?
We've left voicemails and actually sent them a letter.
Okay.
And no response. And I reached out to Laura to help me get a hold of them, and we stopped by the house.
I remember her saying she worked long hours, so
Okay.
maybe we're just missing the during work day.
Well, me and Tony talked today. We're going to try it on a Saturday to try and stop in there, see if we can get in touch with her.
How many houses did he go through?
11.
11.
Yeah, of the 12 that we know of.
Is it concentrated? So it sounds like there's a cluster.
No, not necessarily. It's along Brookhaven Circle and some on Mallard Lane and Brookhaven Court is one that they call in. So not necessarily, but it's really bizarre because one neighbor will have excessive flow or a large amount where it runs, you know, like what I talked about, and then the next door neighbor, the sump pump's dry. So it's kind of unique. It's not like it's concentrated at 4 homes.
That's
It's
what I
not
was
that. It's not that. You know, there's 2 of them right next to each other that run quite a bit,
Okay.
but then the next door neighbors never runs it.
What could that mean?
Well, that's the part that we still need to use the Trotter and do all the information. We were trying to get all the surveys done first and make sure that we had all the information from all those houses, so.
They've already checked those areas for stray farm tiles, right, to see that they're not collecting water in specific houses?
That's
Well-
what we're next to, really.
Correct, that was all part of the
That's what I
review we
thought.
did last time, based on the information that we had. Obviously, there's gravel under the roads. I mean, there's all different types of situations that can interrupt the old farm tiles. So, but anyhow, that we just wanted to give a quick update where we were. Scott Trotter wasn't able to make it tonight, and we had a couple follow-up meetings with him and review the information and to come up with some type of summary and further discussion.
Brad, all the basement floor levels are about the same height?
Yeah, without looking at the numbers, I think they're all within 4 foot of one another,
Okay.
you know.
Is this beyond that? I don't know why I have 8 homes in my head. We talked about 8 homes that were, and I don't know the road well enough.
That was the initial number that was given to me, and then it kind of expanded.
So is
Which
it
is fine,
one in a
it is work.
row, or are you saying across the street?
They were up and down, you know, I have the thing too. They were up and down Brookhaven, primarily on the west side of Brookhaven,
Okay.
north of Mallard Lane, and then Brookhaven Court, which heads to the east of Brookhaven. There was one that we looked at there, and then obviously there was 2 on Mallard Lane, north and south of Mallard Lane, you know, 3-4 from the intersection of Mallard and Brookhaven. But it's always been that south. Well, I guess I would call it from Mallard Lane on they go on Brookhaven, that west side. It's always been the most concentrated.
And they did have a resident that contacted them and said, thank you, whatever you did worked.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's
Right, the neighbor of one of these other houses.
So I guess my question would be, and I know he's not here to answer it, but to Trotter, so knowing where, I guess I'm having a hard time because I don't have a map in front of me, of where the homes are.
Oh, right, yeah. So it's here, this is Mallard Lane, and this is Brookhaven. So these houses in here.
Do we?
Where that park is,
Okay, yeah.
the kids' playground, not the baseball field.
You see this,
Okay, yeah,
see this dark spot right here?
yes.
This is the damaged farmland from the Ogle property that is right behind the house, and they're having problems because of water that saturated it.
So we anticipate though that Trotter, with what findings you've had and how some homes are running, we anticipate that Trotter's still going to come forward with the same recommendation, or we think that might change? We have no idea. So,
we have some more work to do.
okay.
Investigate it, yes.
And maybe next time we do a blow up of the intersection.
Well, we were really just wanted to update you guys and let you know we're working on it. You know, it takes time, like everything. So.
There's some residents here from Mallard Point. Is there any questions that you'd like to direct the staff that maybe they could look into?
I've got one question regarding when you say there was the 2 houses with water in the basement, or not water in the basement, but that it was more frequently running, and then that next door neighbor was dry. Does that happen to be my house and the next door neighbor, or is that somewhere else? Because I know we are on a separate somehow, and you know the details of it better than I do, but I know we somehow drain separately from everybody else apparently in the neighborhood, and I don't know why.
So, your neighbor was substantially less than you.
Okay. I just was curious with us being on whatever of the separate system it was.
Yeah, yours was substantially less. I mean, your neighbor to your north was less from that.
Okay, what about 542?
542 was 1.5 minutes to fill the sump. Yep. Yeah.
And that's been 15 years like that.
And we drain in the front into the sewers.
Do we know how the house is significantly drier? Do we know how that house drains? I mean, if it drains differently than your house, I don't know what their time is like.
It's kind of a mix of where they drain. I have to go through all this because we noted all that, but some drain into the storm sewer, some drain out back to the field tile, some daylight.
So we wanted to give the basic update that we're still investigating and we don't have any conclusions at this point, and that there's a little bit investigation and meeting still needed.
Well, we appreciate you guys opening up your house to our staff, and you know, Brad has been working hard on this, and I believe you have contact information for them all, so we'll keep plugging away. It's not an easy answer. All right. If there's anything else, please let us know. Brad, do you have your email address?
It's on the website, and I think they all have my.
Okay, good. That's what I want to make sure. Okay, thank you. Refuse and recycling container regulations.
short version of it is that we had some questions asked about, first, does the village have any time frame to put refuse and recycling out? You can't put out too early, you have to bring the empties up a certain time frame. The village doesn't. We looked at some neighboring communities, and some do, some don't. The short version of it is that from the staff perspective, we are not recommending to implement any. One, because while we do occasionally get calls, it's not, we don't think it's prevalent, if you will. And then also, realistically, it becomes just because you have a rule, how do you enforce it? Because the time of day that, typically, if there's he has to be back in by 7, 8 at night, well, the only people around are the police department. So if somebody calls, we really want, calling that emergency, dispatch contacting the police department to go out there to say, hey, take your recycling tote back in your house. So, and then, certainly it's my understanding anyway that not that every neighborhood has HOAs, but the ones that do, it's my understanding that HOAs can put rules in place and enforce them themselves if the neighborhood chooses to. So we did. We don't recommend doing anything here, but because it has come up that at least at this point we didn't want to make that decision at the staff level. We at least wanted to bring it to your attention. Unless you feel strongly elsewhere, we don't think there's anything you need to do with it, but certainly you can.
All right. I would like to make a comment to the opposite. I think that it's a good idea to have a time frame because, I've seen neighborhoods where people put junk out days before garbage day, hoping that somebody will come by and pick it up. But then you see, some big metal object or a desk or, junk that's on the parkway for, 5, 6 days before the garbage guys come by and pick it up. And I'm not as worried about bringing the cans in before, but another issue we have is if people put them out too early in the winds with these flip top cans, there's junk all over the neighborhood. And I know our current thing says they got to be out by 6 a.m. for pickup. No, like pickup in Mallard Point is not till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and so I never put them out the night before. Those that do, the next morning you get up and you see junk all over the neighborhood on windy nights. And I just think if we had a time frame, whether we enforce it or not, we've got a lot of laws we don't really enforce unless someone calls and complains. But I think 6 p.m. the night before should be like the earliest you could put it out. Just so it kind of cuts down on the garbage blowing around the neighborhoods.
Is it that prevalent? I guess I think people might do it once in a while, but not often enough to create an ordinance to prohibit.
When I pull out of my driveway tonight, my next door neighbor on one side still had cans out from yesterday.
Yeah.
That he never pulled back in. But that doesn't bother me as much when they're empty as when they're full. So,
I think that some, for those that are in an HOA that do have garbage rules, I laugh because this came up in our HOA. I don't mean to make light of it, but it's, Rachel lives in my neighborhood, she's laughing because it's a touchy subject. There's some that don't want to go into their driveway and have garbage cans that are out for days. And in our particular neighborhood where we're undeveloped, completely, we still have a lot of lots to see. To us, it's like we try to keep it as buttoned up as possible to make those lots look attractive. And we have extremely high limits. So what you're talking about is a real issue.
well, yeah.
I mean, we can't be alone in that we have garbage full.
And unlike years ago, when the garbage guys actually got out of their garbage trucks and took the garbage and dumped it in the truck, now they grab it with arms, put it up in the air and shake it so it blows around already anyway, without having the lids blowing open during the night and milk jugs and wrappers and stuff blowing all over the neighborhood. It seems to me that I don't think it's unreasonable to say don't put it out before 6 o'clock the night before. I mean, some people aren't early risers, or maybe they're going someplace or whatever.
What I think of.
Being out days ahead of time is just not necessary.
I don't see anybody doing it days ahead of time. It's usually that morning, maybe the day before, because somebody's traveling and it might be out longer. I think you have more people traveling nowadays that might set them out for a longer period of time. I'm reluctant to pass an ordinance if we're not gonna enforce it, so, I'd say it's something to monitor, maybe see if we get much feedback from residents, and we can bring it back.
Well, we asked the crowd that's here.
No, I don't want.
Well, if you're not gonna enforce it, don't do it.
You know your
Well,
neighbors
yeah,
can't watch.
But see, we've always taken that, there are certain things like, parking on the sidewalk or something that we didn't enforce unless someone complained. Like during the winter, the people aren't out walking their strollers and stuff as much. So we're not knocking on people's doors or writing tickets to generate revenue. But if we have no law and somebody calls and says, hey, my neighbor's had junk on a parkway for a week now, and I'm getting tired of looking at it. And,
No,
I
I'm
think
fine.
that-
and we say, we can't do anything because we don't have.
Would we have a right to write a letter?
Well, there are other mechanisms also, like if somebody has trash all over their property, it might not be under the garbage can ordinance, but there's certain other ordinances that exist in the village code that would allow you to enforce certain other property maintenance issues.
And that's where, the way I like to go.
Does our garbage ordinance say anything about where the cans should be? In the front of the house, behind the house?
I don't know if Alice
In the garage?
should remind me of what our ordinance does have as far as, I'll just call them junk out there versus the toters,
It's junk that's not in a container and refuse and things like that. And it's just any village staff or the police or I think it actually says trustee can enforce the rule about not specifics.
Who gives you a movie like?
Yeah.
I usually just bring
It's
my
not
golf
just
cart.
not entertaining people, so it's
So I
not.
think it would make sense, let us, get the whole board, but in particular you, Rick, the ordinance, I think addresses non-container issues, which almost sounds like that's the bigger concern, stuff being out there way ahead of time. And to see if we may already have in place, which can address, I think, most of what you're raising as a concern. We were focused.
My
more on
biggest
that
concern is the
toters.
garbage blowing around, because the lids are very loose. They're made that way, so they easily open when they dump them upside down.
Come a long way from
So anything over
buckets.
15-mile-an-hour wind, the lids are gonna be open, stuff's gonna be blowing around the neighborhood, so.
Remember when we had the buckets? That would really cause problems. All right, well, let's look into this a little further then. Priority capital projects list.
Yeah, the village, generally speaking, annually updates priority capital projects list. I think it's important to note that these are not items that are currently budgeted or have a funding source. So this really is to some degree a wish list. And the main thing that we use it for is when we certainly take a look at it when budget comes around, but probably the main thing is if there are grant opportunities to see if something on this list fits whatever grant opportunity may be. And what happens is, doesn't happen often, but occasionally we will become aware of a potential grant opportunity where we literally may have 24 hours to respond. And so if we don't have a working list to see if something fits, it really is a scramble. So as you can see, we took last year's list. Staff's recommending that we add community drive to it. A question did come up if that would for sure be the name of that road if it's built, and the answer to that is no. That was a working name, may or may not be the ultimate name. And that would be essentially midway between Galena and 30 along on 47 to provide access in the long run to both the east and west side for development opportunities on both sides. IDOT road needs IDOT permission. That one gets a little bit more complicated because IDOT actually owns the access rights. They purchased those decades ago, so it's not necessarily a typical permit process. It's a little bit different of a process. And then with it being a divided 4-lane highway down there, it's a big project to do that. Recently a developer was looking at purchasing the west side frontage, and we had engineering consultant look at what type of access would be available. The project was ended by the potential purchaser before anything was approved, but at this point in time, the indications are that right now IDOT would not approve a full intersection. Who knows in the long That's one that we think makes sense to add to the study. As you can see, the current estimate is $2.75 million, and that's where you get to. It's one of those, many would say extraordinary costs of development that makes it more difficult for us to attract, retail, commercial type development in that corridor, whether it be restaurants or shopping or whatever. So if we're able to put this on the list and somehow get some other dollars to help pay for it, staff really thinks that would be appropriate. The other changes we're proposing is the addition of what the draft state is called I-88 Corridor Economic Development Readiness. As I think everybody's aware, in some of the most recent projects being proposed up there, in particular we had conversations with a data center user, and the availability primarily of water and the time frame to put that in place was beyond their decision time frame. So we thought that might be a good one to add to the list. And then if that does get added, at least at this point, we think that the elevated water storage tank that was on there up at the north part of the village would be part of that larger project. So we didn't think it was necessary to keep them both on there. We're trying to really limit this to 10 projects and try to keep it a two-pager, different price points, if you will, but at the same time, recognize different types of projects that the board has identified over the years as priorities. Last thing I just want to point out is that these are currently listed in order based on cost, not by priority through the 10. What happens typically when grant opportunities do come up, there's usually a dollar amount that comes along with that, and if we were fortunate enough to have the opportunity for a $5 million grant, I don't think we'd want to submit a $600,000 project. So we like having a multitude of costs on the list. So that's what we're proposing. Certainly, any discussion or ideas you have tonight, it doesn't need to be approved necessarily next meeting or anything. If you need more time or want us to do more research, probably thought this was a good suggestion from last year.
The Prairie Street and Sugar Grove Parkway realignment signalization, is that worth keeping on since we've had meetings with IDOT and they basically said that they're not interested in taking on that project even when they widen 47?
It's tough to answer in that one of the things that's you never have 100% certainty on is some of these projects how much they're driven by agencies or staff at agencies from a technical perspective, and how much sometimes they're driven, quite frankly, by the grant opportunities there. In the old days, they had what they called member initiative grants, where the elected representatives kind of had the ability to, I don't want to exaggerate, but to somewhat kind of pick and choose what project they wanted to. I'm not in any way saying those times exist now or coming back, but there is an argument that things that may seem rather unlikely, you never know.
Okay.
So
that's a valid point. All right. And these are primarily just capital projects, or are they more business driven?
When we talked about in the past in this, when you try to decide what projects do or don't belong on there, certainly one of the thoughts in mind is, what's the need in the community? Public safety always is a big concern, and economic development is as well. I mean, you'd like to make investments, whether it's local money or grant money, in something that, like I say, fulfills an existing need, but also if we can help produce economic development benefit, that's great too.
And with that Prairie Street thing, we've had a couple of developers over the years come in and express interest on the west side of 47 off of Prairie, and eventually maybe we can talk someone into working with us to try and straighten out that intersection and develop that area.
And I think, just additional thought to your point, Sean, is that I think that if we are hoping to have traction on some of these with other agencies or officials, the fact that they're on an official list, I'm not sure how much weight it carries, but it shows something rather than, hey, we just, it doesn't come across. We just thought of it.
if you would, contact Brent or Tony with any other projects that you'd like to see on this list. Okay. Moving on, questions for staff? I like the improvements to the public work staff report where you kept track of the snow event, so that's nice to have that, and lane miles driven, that's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah, 1,000 miles for one snow event.
Yeah, that was the last one.
Yeah, wow, that says something. When we have 80 lane miles, that tells you how many passes are taken.
Yeah,
so.
we were fighting that snow and ice mix and stuff. We had to keep going over it, you know.
Uh-huh.
A lot of miles.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So I appreciate that, and the calendar at the end of the administrative report. Thank you. That's always nice to see what's coming up. So if you haven't seen it, it was on the second page this time. It gives you a running list of events that are coming up that you might need to RSVP for or attend. So, any questions for staff? The budget's ready to get printed off.
We're going out next week.
Next
workshop will be the next week.
How many trees we killing a forest or? All right.
When's the workshops? First meeting in March.
They'll be during our board meetings.
Oh.
Okay. No staff reports. Trustee reports. Ted?
Nothing for me.
Sean?
Nothing for me.
Rick?
The other thing I'd like to bring up, especially with the suicide prevention that we did tonight, another issue, the upcoming luncheon for the chamber, which is on the 12th of March over at the fire station at noon. They are having Ron Hain, the sheriff of the county, speak along with Nathan Lathrop, who's the executive director of Lighthouse Recovery, and they're going to be speaking on the opiate crisis in Kane County. And I can say that Nathan, he went to high school at the same time my oldest daughter did, and this is a project that he started right out of high school with a friend of his, and has turned into a big thing now. He's working with the sheriff's office and inmates and everything else with helping people recover from drug addiction and that. So it should be a very interesting topic if anyone gets a chance to attend.
Okay. Anything else right now?
If you haven't been to our convention bureau stuff, and if you have not been to the Paramount for the newest show yet, The Secret of My Success, it was very good. We went Friday, and I think anyone who's season ticket holders will like it. And those that aren't, it might be worth a look. So.
Okay. And did I read this is a world premiere, or are they one of the first ones to put this on?
It's the first. They put it together as a musical, and it is the premiere. We went the third night that it started, and the director came out and spoke to the crowd before, and he said, "We're still tweaking things." He said, "We actually added something new for the orchestra 45 minutes ago." But it was wonderful. You'd never know. I think they did a wonderful job. So I think they're and they've already released next season's plays, and they look like it's going to be a great season for next season too. So
good. Okay. Jen?
Just wanted to thank Joe Wolf. He invited me to attend the airport meeting, and it was enlightening. Not well attended, but not a lot of public wants to attend those meetings. But it was very informative for me, and I appreciate you offering that to me. So, and it's good that I could bring back some things I heard and to the village staff. So, thank you.
Okay. President's report. I got word tonight that the Phase 2 contract, the Widen 47, has moved on down to Springfield. So that's exciting because it's moving that project forward. It's only taken them 6 to 9 months to get this contract signed. So it's still not signed, but at least it's heading in the right direction. So keep everybody up to speed. That'd be a project worthwhile. All right.
I didn't hear what project is that?
Widening Route 47 between Sherwood Grove and Yorkville.
Okay.
So they just completed the Phase 1 last July after about 10 years of doing the Phase 1. It sat on somebody's desk for a long time. So then the next step is Phase 2, the right-of-way acquisition and the detailed plans. but they couldn't sign it, or since IDOT did not sign the contract with the engineers have not been able to do any work. So we've lost about 9 months when it's supposed to be a 2-year project, so it's pushing that back, and then you're gonna have construction, and that'll probably take 2 to 3 years, so I think we're looking 2024, 2025 by the time it's done, so. Each month we delay, the longer it takes to get done. Okay, public comments, any public comments? Yes?
I don't know if there's been any concern coming in as far as the semis coming down Route 30, or they come over the hill and they come down up to the light as far as the jake braking, as they come up to the light, and it gives it, basically it's the engine downshifting of the engine, gives out that loud drone noise basically. So I don't know if there's been any complaints filed with that, but I don't know if they can put signs up the county. That's something that the county would have to do.
Maybe we work with the state on, because we did have them on the south side of town and worked with IDOT on those.
So they're always on here and all.
Yeah.
If the light's red, they all come over the hill so quick and start the brake breaker ready before they.
Yeah, that's annoying.
If the light changes, then they.
Yep.
So maybe it's something that can be looked into.
Yep, thank you.
That's all I got.
Yep, no, appreciate it. Any other comments?
Some good information for you guys here too. Be my mail person again. Maybe if you want, look at it and then give it back and then put that in my list, I guess. If you would. Yeah, but
If I may, under the president's report, we did receive the official letter from Crown Development requesting.
Yeah, that was the 10th,
Okay.
Friday, November 10th.
Yeah, so we did receive that letter from Crown requesting de-annexation. And the way the statute reads is it has to be on file for 30 days before the village can take action. So no action will be taken in 30 days, but we did receive that letter and request, and I just want to make that public comment to that effect.
Right, yeah, this is just what I am aware that you received that on the 10th and the 30-day restriction. The relevance is with, I believe there's a relevance with this North Point development and their recent actions. This article was printed on January 17th of 2020 regarding the North Point development, and they were looking for an annexation agreement with Joliet for $1.2 billion business park and an additional 16 million square feet of warehousing and storage and trucking facilities, which would bring the area total to a little over 30 million square feet. And it kind of follows with similar actions that are going on with Crown and their project for 8847 out here. Basically, North Point Development said Friday it's asking Joliet to annex 1,300 acres for a $1.2 billion project. The move comes 2 months after Kansas City-based developer won approval for a 103-acre light industrial project in Joliet near Ridge and Green Roads. At the time of that approval, opponents said they feared that the 103-acre parcel would lead to a larger project similar to the one in the village of Elwood. So I guess what that says is be careful what you prove, because sometimes things can jump up on you and it leads to a bigger, worse situation potential later. It said that North Point officials said in a release Friday that Joliet Phase project would connect unincorporated Will County property to the company's existing property in Joliet and Elwood. Elwood initially turned down the annexation application by North Point in 2018, so that's why they've chosen to try to go through Joliet and build out the property that way. What it also says in here is that North Point officials Thursday also contacted Manhattan officials about coordinating any development property the company owns with Manhattan's planning area with the Joliet project. By the planning area, they're referring to what our planning area is here. It shows on this map the circumference that it entails. Outside of the corporate limits, every village or municipality has a right to establish a 1.5 mile area planning zone. And then again, the comment from one of the trustees said, I'm surprised that they were coming back so quick after the 103 acre development approval, but they are. The other thing, North Point said they are not planning to seek any financial incentives or tax increment financing district for the development, which I guess shows that they can do this and be profitable without a TIF for that area. And then again, I'm just hitting some of the highlights. Obviously, the whole story is there for you to go ahead and read it. And then again, it reiterates here what I already said. In 2018, Elwood area residents turned out in large numbers in opposition. 2018, the annexation was dropped, and Elwood Village President Don Jenko issued a statement saying there was not enough support on the village board to approve the request. The last page kind of sums it up, that North Point then applied to Will County, which there's been rumors about the Crown's intentions possibly after the de-annexation to apply to the county. However, there's been no movement on that proposal, and after the developer submission, the county board member, Jim Mustis, a Republican from Frankfurt, urged the company to withdraw its application until the company could address serious concerns raised by the local families, basically relating to health, safety, welfare of the community. And the last part on this is basically the implication that there are other roadblocks to this project being approved, regardless of whether they went and tried to go through the county and or through Joliet to annex that way. The second handout I gave you is more Illinois statutes that also support the rights of the community and their zoning area. This is from the zoning perspective. I was in here on the 5th of November and handed out some Illinois statutes and a Jonathan Jans report, and then again last week or a couple of meetings ago some other statutes. But this is from the zoning. It says, to the end that adequate light, pure air, and safety from fire and other dangers may be secured, that the taxable value of land and buildings throughout the municipality may be conserved, that congestion in the public streets may be lessened or avoided, that hazards to persons and damage to property resulting from accumulation or runoff of storm or flood waters may be lessened, and that the public health, safety, comfort, morals, and welfare may otherwise be promoted. This is the, and also to facilitate the preservation of sites, areas, structures, historical, architectural, and aesthetic importance. This seems to be the foundation that the zoning laws are based on, and within that there's comments on what the zoning laws can be. On page 2, the last paragraph, it also deals with corporate limits or contiguous territory. It says the powers enumerated may be exercised within the corporate limits or within contiguous territory not more than 1.5 miles beyond the corporate limits and not included with any municipality. However, if any municipality adopts a plan pursuant to Division 12 of Article 11, which plan includes in its provision a provision that the plan applies to such contiguous territory not more than 1.5 miles beyond the corporate limits and not included in any municipality, then no other municipality shall adopt a plan that shall apply to any territory included within the territory provided in the plan first so adopted by another municipality. As far as I understand, we have established a zoning plan that encompasses 1.5 miles. I think I was at the Elbert meeting on February 4th, and they had just rebooted their plan, which is subsequent to ours, because ours was there beforehand. So what I'm saying is, regardless of what Crown does try to do, we do have some legal maneuvers that are options for us to basically control the zoning within our own plan borders, and then we can work out the rest of all of the other things that are going on. And the last page on this, number 3, is an excerpt from the Jonathan Jan's report that I brought to you on November 5th of 2019. Basically says the same thing, that conflicts of the 1.5 mile planning and subdivision jurisdiction for land within the limits of 2 or more neighboring municipalities are resolved by 65 ILCS 5/11-12-9. This section authorizes municipalities to agree on a jurisdictional boundary while giving consideration to the natural flow of stormwater drainage. Now, I know you've got boundary borders with all of the surrounding communities except Elbert. It's also been understood verbally, at least from what I've heard, by both Elbert and Sugar Grove, that the boundary line has been basically accepted to be Main Street, which is about that 1.5 mile distance. But it says conflicts of the 1.5 mile planning and subdivision jurisdictions for land within the limits of 2 or more neighboring municipalities I'm sorry, I read this, I'll resolve. He says this section authorizes municipalities to agree on a jurisdictional boundary.
Jerry, if I may, it's 2 parties to agree. We've accepted or proposed that. We're not getting any response from Elbert.
I'm aware of that. I am. I know you guys have tried, and like I said, you've done. You've got these agreements with everybody else. You can't.
Yeah.
We don't have one with Big Rock either.
Well, Big Rock, right? But I think they're kind of.
But saving the time, we're trying.
Right. So. But here's the key in my mind is that in the absence of such agreement, the statute provides that the jurisdiction of any one of the authorities shall extend to a median line equidistant between the boundaries of the municipalities. So even if there is not an agreement, given the background of this type of a development and falling under the rules of health, safety, and welfare, I believe that you would legally be able to establish control of this zone for Sugar Grove and also establish control for the zoning. There's also reference to the county, and they do go through the county. Also in this report that generally the obvious area of conflict between county and municipal planning and subdivision has been resolved in favor of the cities and villages. So there's been a court historical precedent that usually these things are resolved in favor of the village because they're the ones that are most. Is that no?
It's not correct, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a highly nuanced area of law, but the case law is, this is far too detailed to go into an inductive meeting right now. I'd be happy to talk to you.
Okay, that'd be great, because all I'm trying to do is create.
It's a highly fact-specific analysis. Much of this doesn't apply at this point in time yet. Much of this depends on a lot of hypotheticals that we can't begin to address until they actually happen.
That's okay. See, that's again, so I understand, and I'm glad that you are aware of it. As I've said before, I don't have the insight and the privilege to what the strategy of the village is. I'm just simply trying to bring up issues and points that may help to focus on these things. And you may already have a beautiful plan established and a strategy written and so on. And I hope you do.
The village is certainly exploring every option available to it, is aware of what the precedent is and is trying to do, very carefully and cautiously what is in the best interest of the village and all the residents.
Right. Okay. Well, like I said, that's I do hope that is the case. I believe that it will be. But until it does happen, there's concerns and considerations that have to be brought to people's attention, and they need to be made aware of these things. So that's all I'm trying to accomplish. So anyway, thank you very much.
Any other public comments? Joe, airport report.
I'd like to give my airport report first, and I have a few comments on Crown, but short ones, because the airport is trying to develop the Honda Jet area, and there has been some interest, people looking at it, companies looking at it, but they need utilities, water and sewer, which is not provided. And that would be quite costly. I think the companies, when they look at it, kind of think, do we want it that bad? The airport, Steve is looking to get some federal money to bring in help with the utilities, but that's kind of a long shot, because the federal government put in 80% of the cost to develop the Honda Jet, and then Honda backed out. And that was kind of a black eye for our airport to lose that when 80% of the money. So, and any improvements to the airport, 80% come from the federal government, 10 from the state, and 10 from the city of Aurora. So, but they are looking at it, and there is some interest lately in companies locating there, and I think if they can tie the company and the government and everybody together, something could happen there. I know Steve Andrews is working on that. Brent has been helping, and thank Jen for passing the word along. So there's a lot of interest in it, so hopefully that will happen. On Crown, I guess who would have thought they were that serious about warehouses? Huh? I mean, it's hard to figure, but I guess they are. I don't know if you have a plan. Hope is not a plan. I think you need to get together with some type of plan, at least 5 of you, to see what can be worked out. It's getting down to serious time. And it's up to you to do something about it. You're the only group that can. I hope you're serious. Hope you I tried to give some suggestions, but none of them were good, were they? I mean, how many gas stations can you put in 700 acres? So, you know, I guess my suggestions were not very good. But I tried to help. I know I'm smiling, but it's not a time for levity, but it's either sometimes when we were in the really bad negotiations, it was time to either laugh or cry. Trying to bring a little smiles today, because otherwise I'd be crying. But good luck with, and you'll need more than luck, but I hope you will come up with a serious plan, because we want this in Sugar Grove, even if there has to be some warehouses eventually, because ground's not going to go away. But we want it in Sugar Grove. We don't want it in Elburn. We don't want it in Big Rock. So I'm asking to really try to get together and see what you can do as a board. I know it's a tough decision. Toughest one you'll ever make. But that's why we elected you, and that's your job, and that's why we trust you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, again, thank you for being here tonight. Can I get a motion to adjourn to closed session to discuss litigation? Yeah. And for exception of the Open Meetings Act, not take action, and adjourn from there. Second, roll call, please.
Trustee Mark Alto.
Aye.
Trustee Aaron.
Aye.
Trustee